Hi, everyone. Welcome to the September Lunch and Learn. We are happy to have Cheryl Skjolaas with us today. She is the Agricultural Safety Specialist with UW Extension, and she's going to share some of her insights on staying safe on the farm this fall harvest season. If you have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat section and I can let Cheryl know that you have a question, or you can unmute yourself and ask that question when it is timely. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Cheryl.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon to everyone here as we move into that afternoon. I'm going to take a moment and get my slides up here. So just had practiced this, but okay. Are you able to see them, or I got something going wrong here? I think I want a new share. Okay, we also will get the sirens going.
Yeah, you'll have to go back, Cheryl, to the display settings to swap your screens there.
There we go. Now we're all set, right?
Now it's still opposite.
Okay.
Go to display settings. There we go.
Now we're there?
No.
We're set, Wendy?
Nope, it still didn't swap. Maybe.
Okay, I just swapped out. Let's do this. Let's turn that one off. And now am I there?
No.
Okay, let's stop this. Sorry about this, everyone.
All right.
Gonna share.
It's the fun part of technology.
It is. Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. We'll get her one way or the other. So again, thank you, everybody. I'm glad to have this opportunity to share a little bit of fall harvest safety and some thoughts as we move into this very important season for our farms and bringing the crops. And for those of you that I haven't met, I'm Cheryl Skjolaas, and I've been here as an agricultural safety and health specialist since December of 1990, and so I'm part of the UW-Madison Extension Center for Agricultural Safety and Health. Also learned a lot of lessons about safety being a farm kid from here in Stoughton, Wisconsin. So bringing lots of different experiences as we talk about fall harvest safety. The first area that I'd like to touch upon today is, really a good starting point for safety is that machinery maintenance in the shop. It's a lot easier to send machinery to the field in good repair, cleaned up, checked out, than it is to get out in the field and now we have to do some major repair on it. It's also a good time to check those safety features. Are all the shields in place, guards? Are your fire extinguisher? Can you pull that seat belt on those tractors with ROPS or those self-propelled implements? Can you pull those out? Be sure that those are working. So as you do that maintenance, also pull out your operator's manual and look at those safety reminders, that safety section of that operator's manual. There could be some things that, you haven't used this equipment in a year, and it's a good reminder before you get going out into the field with that equipment. So safety always starts with some good maintenance ahead of time. This year, and no surprise to any of you, I'm guessing, that are watching this, that I'm adding in, assess your fields for storm damage. because as you're planning out your fields of harvesting, what your work for the time is going to be, are there going to be some of those water ponds that aren't going to be gone, potential areas that you could get stuck or you need to delay harvesting in those areas. Also looking at some of the heavy rains we had, there could be those areas that have washed out. I remember a few years back, we were doing a farm rescue training with a fire department in the southwest part of the state. And one of the firefighters that was there that evening had been going through the field, hit a washout, and basically split the combine frame in half. That hadn't planned for that weight of that front being heavier with that header, and then hitting that ditch in that field did significant damage to that combine. So looking at some of that damage, it also might mean that because of the crop, the condition, your normal machinery setup might have to be modified. And so be looking for some of that information related to storm damaged crops and how machinery might have to have some different maintenance or setups to it in this fall season. We'll hope that Mother Nature gets on our side and takes some of this rain to places that can use it while we get through the harvest season. Another thing to do is to pre-plan for emergencies. And I know this probably seems one of those topic areas that, why would I be planning for emergency? We want to be preventing them. So as you do some of this pre-planning for emergency, once again, it's getting everybody into the communication plans, doing some of those preventive actions. So if you do have an emergency that you have to call for those responders, it's saving everybody's time. And in the case of a response, if someone's injured, that response time is very precious. You want to get those emergency responders there. In case of a fire, you want to have that fire put out as fast as possible and reduce the impact. So when you're planning for these emergency, start with locations of fields and the drives. What are the closest roads or intersections? Most of us can tell you our, field number, our farm numbers, those fire numbers. But when we're actually out and away from that farmstead, how do I help direct that fire department, those emergency responders, to get to that field that we're located in? I know our one farm, when I was growing up, we had a field that was through the farmstead, back through the woods, and here sat this hidden field. If something had happened down there, we could have used the fire number to get there, but having somebody along the way would have been needed to help direct them and get them down into that field for access. Those emergency phone numbers, we know a lot that we need to call 911. But some of those other numbers that we may need to call, so once we get 911 called, who's the next in line that you need to report it to? If you have employees working for you, if you have other family members that may need to be contacted, the insurance agency, having those numbers in those vehicles, if something happens, provides that backup source of information along with those directions to help everybody out. Because when we get, when something happens, we easily get excited, nervous, we'll forget some of that information. So easier to have a resource that you can look at or one of the responders may be able to look into. So doing that pre-planning. Along with, know some basic first aid, have that first aid kit, simple things that you can beef up in that first aid kit. So, heavier duty scissors if you need to cut something. That roll of paper toweling can become a good brace if somebody gets injured and needs to have something stabilized. So having some of those things along in your vehicles and everybody ready for an incident is a good thing to do. Talked about pre-planning, and I just want to touch a little bit about fires. Check those fire extinguishers, know their locations. whether they're in the building or on the machine, especially on our combines, our harvesting, to know where they are located on that machine. Get yourself off that piece of machinery before you try to extinguish that fire. You know, have that get out of the machinery, have your extinguisher, you know, call for 911, take those actions, and then, you know, pause and determine, is it going to be safe to try and extinguish this fire? These fires can burn fast, they can burn hot. The photo on this page was actually in a field alongside my house. And I came home from work and realized that the fire truck was there and had to, you know, they had determined that they needed to call for the fire department. And the other factor that they ran into was, one, the fire extinguishers didn't put out very much, but also the corn fodder in the field started to catch fire. And so they were using the fire extinguishers primarily to control the fodder from burning greater, because with the high winds that day, if that fire had picked up or been able to take off, there were other houses in the area that could have been a concern. So taking some time and doing that fire prevention. Checking your implements of husbandry or farm machinery, the lighting and marking before you take to the road. In the lower left-hand photo, you are seeing an SMV emblem. It's clean, it's bright. If that orange center is dull, faded, no coloring to it, that's an indicator that this is an SMV emblem that you're going to want to be replacing. And that's an emblem whether, you know, any type of IOH is requiring that SMV emblem, so everybody should have that clean, bright, shiny SMV. The newer ones will have the retroreflective materials in the outside red band, and if you're replacing them, look for that new retroreflective materials to be in that outer red to give you the most visibility. As you're checking your flashers, your reflective tape, remember, red is the color that goes to the rear of the vehicle and amber is your color to the front. The white lights should only be on your forward-facing lamps when you're operating on the field, so think headlights. Any of your work lights need to be turned off when you're out there operating on the field. If you have that wide IOH, you know, greater than 12 feet, being able to cross the center line, be sure that you check out the requirements of wide IOH for those additional requirements, and that remember that the lights need to be on at all times for our wide IOH. And I know that the Wisconsin Farm Bureau Federation has lighting and marking and the new regulations on their website. I also have a lighting and marking publication up on my website, which is posted here. And so taking the time, checking those every day before you head out to the field. It's easy for a lamp to burn out, that light bulb, getting those replaced, being sure that if you have changed something about the piece of equipment, that, you know, those extender arms might be down and in place so that they're able to show that wide width of that equipment. But go to that road into the field with your lighting and marking in as required. Also, for your vehicles as you take to the road, know your vehicle rules. On the left-hand side here, I have that agricultural CMV, so a new classification for our truck side of things was the Ag CMV. They differ from our other commercial motor vehicles, different weight requirements, different operator requirements than our implements of husbandry. So be sure that you know your vehicles, check out those rules, refresh yourself on those requirements. Also know the weight limits of the roads that you're going to be operating on. Again, with the weather that we've been having and the delicate nature of wet roads, wet shoulders, some of the roads may be posted for the fall and due to the flooding. So be sure that you check out the weight limits of your roads. Also look at, for the different roads you're operating on, you know, what is the weight limit? Do you need an oversized permit, overweight permit for an implemented husbandry or an ag CMB for the loads that you're wanting to haul? The photo on the right, just a reminder that, you know, you cannot legally block the road. So with the wet weather, you might be wanting to talk to those road authorities, asking them about, you know, parking vehicles on the shoulders or extending some of the driveway so that you're not pulling the mud out onto the field. Some of the harvest, you have the responsibility to be cleaning up those roads, and you can't leave other things like mud or manure on the road. So look at, you know, how you're going to be coming out of those fields. Are you going to be able to get those heavy loads out from the fields? Do you need to use that right away? And if so, getting in contact with those local road authorities. So there's lots to consider before you even take to the field, looking at your vehicles, what your weight limits are, and what routes you're going to be traveling. Remember to remind everybody that they need to follow those rules of the road. We share the roads with other vehicles, and we want to work to prevent any of those farm equipment motor vehicle crashes out there. The image here is showing one of those situations. If this car hadn't been able to stop, would have crashed into the farm equipment, even though legally the driver of the car would not be able to pass in the no passing zone. And I'll be honest, this was part of the Farm Bureau Media Day that we were doing last week. So this was a controlled situation when we had this car passing and the photo being taken. But think about sharing those roads, sharing those routes that you're planning to be using. When are those busy times that people could be on the road? What are some of the things that have happened in the past that you want your other operators to know? Excuse me. One last key point related to the rules of the road is remember that as a farm equipment operator, you have the responsibility to follow the rules of the road, obey those stop signs, those yield signs, just like everybody else. You also have the responsibility to warn motorists of your intent to turn. So using those turn signals, putting them on for a little bit at a time, because if cars have been following for you for a while and you just have the flashers going, it's hard for them sometimes to adjust to the fact that they've gone to a turn signal. If you do not have a turn signal, you know, still hand signals are acceptable. But take that action. Be sure to always warn those motorists that you have an intent to turn. My next area is I wanted to touch on some of the confined spaces, and this is a huge area that we could, you know, take the time and cover each of these probably in the time that we're given here today. But as we talk about confined spaces this fall, one of the real concerns for these spaces is the atmospheric hazard. On my left is that upright silo chute. And as we get back to putting up our corn silage and that silo gas being produced, the gas of concern here is going to be nitrogen dioxide. On those grain bins, as our corn doesn't stay in condition, we get some molding. It can start to use up that oxygen in the bin and producing greater carbon dioxide, which results in lack of oxygen in that air, plus more of a dusty, moldy environment. So grain bins have a different risk than the silos. And then my third image here on the right-hand side is a channel under a barn. Hasn't been used yet, but as this channel gets used, filled with manure, somebody going in here, cleaning it out, any of those areas that we have that risk for manure gas, we want to be talking and knowing the risk of hydrogen sulfide, methane, carbon dioxide, and ammonia. And really our key one when we look at manure gas is that hydrogen sulfide. a very toxic gas, can kill somebody in a very limited amount. And if they're in one of these confined spaces without supplied air to it, they get exposed to that hydrogen sulfide. Now it could be other rescuers being put at risk and exposure to that hydrogen sulfide. Methane can be a concern, but remember, methane is our gas that takes pressure in order to have a human health impact, but it is our gas that can, cause the explosion and burn. So methane is going to travel up as it's lighter than air. So be considering, the methane that can be coming off of those manure gases in those areas where there is that explosion risk. The only way you truly can know what's in that atmosphere is to use a gas monitor. And so we're really encouraging, trying to help people understand that those multimeter, single gas meters are really, your best tool to know what's in that environment and taking the precautions to help protect your health and life.
Cheryl, where can you purchase those meters, or where would you recommend people go?
So there are a number of different safety companies in each of our areas. So going to one of the safety companies to help get the right monitor. You can find them from some of the online companies. The one concern is to be sure that you're getting a monitor that is, a new technology. I know we were looking at some, and it was something that a company was discontinuing. So the price seemed really good, but if it's something where you're going to be looking to replace a sensor, so I really do encourage people to go to a local company. Plus, if you need technical support, you can get that technical support. I know I have, I've priced them, like at some of the, not supporting any one company here, but Granger's, Fastenal. There's different safety supply companies in your areas where there's industry. Mm-hmm. So, check around. People that may be working in industry probably, have a source of them locally. If not, give me a call and we'll help connect you with somebody in your local area.
And we do have a member benefit with Granger, so people can get a discount on products from Granger, so that might be a good opportunity for them to check it out there.
Yeah, that's a good one to know. And they are a very valuable tool, because like even that silo gas, it's one of those where you might be okay during the day doing your work, and then later that night as those fluids start building in your lungs. We've also have been doing some training this year with farm rescue personnel, trying to get them understanding the different situations and what gases, so when you get brought in for treatment, you have the best opportunity there too for getting the correct treatment in the fastest time. So grain storage and handling safety, just a couple key points here, and this will be a big one this fall as we see where our crops coming in. We could have some of the crop that doesn't have the best condition to it. So keeping grain in good condition is really the first step. So watching those bins, keeping it at the right dryness, at the right moisture levels, at the right coolness, and maintaining your bin and grain quality is really the point that we keep going back to, because if that grain can't crust, it can't mold, now you don't have a reason that the grain is going to bridge as you start to remove it, or that it's going to mound up on the side. So if you can keep that grain in good condition, that's the first step. The other key factor is if for any reason you do have to go in there, that all the system is locked out, because flowing grain on its own is not going to drag you into it. It's when we have that grain flowing, we break through that bridge grain where the guy is standing in the graphic left-hand side. He breaks through it. If anything, if those augers are on, you're sucked down into it. That auger can also be another point that you can get entangled in that auger. So really lock those systems out, knowing the electricals. This is not a one-person job. If somebody does have to go in there, it needs to be a two-person job. Entering with, the lifeline, with, the proper precautions in place. So if somebody does run into problems, that you can start rescue right there. Also consider that there can be the organic dust, the molds, and you want to be sure that you protect your own health. A basic N95 two-strap respirator, another thing you can get from a safety supply company, keeping those out of your system is really important, because there's several different types of health effects that can be caused by these, and that information also would be available on our website. So go in protecting your own health, wearing that PPE, but try to deal with the situation by keeping that grain in good condition in the storage, and not having to go into those bins. Don't take shortcuts. As we look at some of the injury types of data, those simple things, that it's that fall from a height, it's that fall from a level area. So as you're talking about, climbing those bin ladders onto tractors and equipment, always remember to maintain a 3-point when you're climbing onto those pieces of equipment. So, as you move yourself up, both hands, 1 foot, both feet, 1 hand, 3 points, stay connected as you're moving up those ladders and steps. Use those handholds. I know for some of the younger crowd, it's easy to jump down, but I can tell you from looking at some worker compensation data, there were a lot of twisted knees, broken legs, ankles, just from, saving yourself a step off that tractor or that combine ladder. So don't take those shortcuts. Use those proper equipment to get you up to heights. A skid steer bucket, a front end loader bucket, those are not approved mechanisms. They might do the job, but it's not going to be a safe way to get you up. If you have to get that lift with the basket, have the ladder, take those extra precautions. It's the shortcuts. And a lot of times you hear people say, I thought I could save myself a few seconds. I just wanted to get this done. I felt in a rush. And as I was doing that, I made this bad decision that got me hurt. As we go down the road here, I'm trying to increase in the importance here and training operators. And so whether it's family members, whether it's hired employees, whether it's somebody that comes to help you for the day that your family's known for a long time, you want to be sure that you provide them with training. Review how to operate the tractors, the machinery that you're going to be operating. What are the hazards? How can you get hurt? And once again, going back to that operator's manual. Having a daily checklist that as you go to the field, what are those items that you want everybody checking out before they take that piece of equipment? Because these are the things that, going back to that maintenance type of things, easier to get the maintenance done before you get moving than to be out in the field and having something happen. Also with training operators, I just wanted to touch upon this because if you have any employee working for you this fall, whether they're a new or they're an experienced operator, under the Occupational Safety and Health Act, there are these 9 items that you need to train employees on an annual basis related to tractors. And there's also training requirements for machinery. When you read through these 9 items, they may seem like very basic types of safety items to be covered. But it's not just, when you're in a tractor with a ROPS, have the seatbelt fastened or reduce speed. Okay, where in that work environment that they are going to be doing a specific task, Do they need to be concerned about, their speed or crossing slopes? What are going to be some of the considerations for, slippage with the muddy surfaces this year? So taking each of these and going through them and making them specific to your operation really is the key point with this tractor training. So 9 items and good things to go through for everyone. As we go through this, adding health into your day, taking breaks, just getting a refocus, refreshing yourself, remembering to use that personal protective equipment in situations where there could be some hazards for you or your own personal health. You know that you have respiratory hazards. Eating nutritious food, and not relying on that sugar boost from a soda or a candy. Getting sleep and not just, dozing off in the tractor cab. I had one farmer say to me that the greatest safety risk on a farm was when tractors got headlights, because now you can go longer in the day instead of taking the break. Be sure through the season that, it is the work, we need to get it done, but still taking time, to spend with your families and friends when that stress starts building. And when your gut feeling tells you that something is going wrong, as in the picture with this tractor being stuck, that you take a break, think it through, get the right help to get you out of the situation. Don't just, put yourself in a dangerous situation because you're stressed out and wanting to get it taken care of or just frustrated. Get it done, but get it done with safety and all considerations for everyone involved. So here is my number one thing to do for safety this fall is when you're working around this equipment, when you're making repairs, you're making adjustments, something gets stuck up, something needs to be cleaned, lock it out. And that's, a more general industrial term, but it basically means have the power off. Those chains can't catch your fingers if they're not running. Those gathering chains on the old corn picker, the new combines, they can't pull you in if that equipment is turned off and you've allowed that stored energy to get out of the system. So machinery, when we're doing those repairs, we're doing those maintenance, having that equipment off, because so often if it's someone became entangled in a power takeoff because they were trying to reach in to that piece of machinery and doing something and they got too close to that power takeoff, just the action of taking the time, turning that power off, locking it out, letting that stored energy come out of the system is really a key to preventing many and most of our machinery injuries that we see in agriculture. We really want to have a safe and healthy harvest season. We'll be, recognizing Safety and Health Week, September 16th through the 22nd. There's a lot of different other safety factors. I haven't touched upon, keeping children out of the work site, having, visitors into the work site. But, throughout the whole safety season and our whole harvest season, different safety. Hopefully this webinar today has helped you think about some of those things for your own operations, maybe some information that you want to go find, some checklists that you want to create, some of the rules that you need to look up. But, while we might look and focus on safety during National Farm Safety and Health Week, really we need to have safety throughout that whole harvest season, and hopefully we can celebrate a good harvest season. With that, thank you, and any questions that I could be able to answer for you.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to just shout them out. I should mention that we will be honoring Farm Safety Week with some social media posts, so definitely stay tuned and feel free to share that information from our social media channels. Any questions? All right. If not, I want to thank Cheryl for her expertise today and sharing with us today's Lunch and Learn. We will be posting this online, so please feel free to share with your friends and neighbors as they prepare for harvest season. And we are wishing all of you a really fantastic harvest. Please be safe, and we'll see you next month, October, for a annual meeting and YFA conference preview. Thanks so much.